Hello, my name is Starlight. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and I'm reaching out to all of you beautiful souls out there. I hope you're able to get out in nature like Starlight is. What a beautiful day it is. It is so beautiful out here right now. It's a really beautiful breeze. I'm kind of on a hill out here, and this is a beautiful hike out here is because they have like a gym, in different sections, like section one to all, who knows how many different sections that they have that you could pull off while you're taking a hike and do some exercise, go to the next one. And so I love those. And anyway, I really hope you're getting out in nature, and don't forget your family. If you have family members, to bring them along. Maybe you got somebody out there that has a hard time getting out. Guess what your job is? Starlight isn't my job. Well, do you love them? Yeah, well, you can inspire them. They don't want to go out. Well, you can do something to try to help them to get out and, reward them. Maybe, I don't know. You don't want to go buy them ice cream, though. Hey, I'll take you out for ice cream if you'll take a hike with me, So that is kind of, but there's got to be something that you could do to inspire your family that might have a hard time getting out. So anyway, I love you all. And if you are new to my YouTube channel, welcome. And you can find me on YouTube, and that is at Starlight, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman. Plus, you can give my videos a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, don't forget, don't be afraid, don't be shy. Swing by and say, hi, Starlight. And thank you, all of you that do reach out and say hello. People that are putting positive comments out here. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And also, besides leaving me a message, you could share my videos and with your family, your friends. I've seen a lot of squirrels running around out here hiding. So yes, you could share my videos with a squirrely friend. And I'm going to say a ladybug because I did see a ladybug the other day. And also, besides sharing my videos, you can also check out my playlist. And you can also follow me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K Dingman Starlight. So here we go. Whoopsie, I got some, so Starlight is going to just pull over on the side. So today in this video, Starlight will do this for now, today's video is going to be a part 2. Hello, hi. And the video I made the other day is how to protect your garden. And of course, if you watch that video, you know that Starlight was not talking about gardens. And I hope you read the description on that video, because I did kind of explain that in the description. So I did talk about how to protect a garden, so nobody can say I didn't say that in that video. But today I'm going to kind of continue, because I was explaining different things about a garden. And if you didn't watch that part 1, you're going to really want to watch part 1 on how to protect a garden. And those are different things that Starlight has learned, and that's an actual garden. But Starlight was not only talking about a garden, protecting your plants from weeds and protecting your plants and food from the animals. So Starlight was also talking about, like other things in life, and that is why I want to make part 2 on this. And so if you didn't watch part 1, you're going to really have to watch that before you watch this one. And in part 1, I was explaining how, I worked hard for my YouTube channel, and I need to protect, people that leave nasty comments, negative comments, rude comments, or whatever comments. And it's wise to not let that kind of stuff go on my YouTube channel, because I worked so hard. And there's a lot of people that will make judgments on a YouTuber, not just Starlight, not on a not just Starlight being a YouTube creator, but a lot of other people. They don't have anything better to do but to do that. And what are they doing in their life? Absolutely nothing. So this is part 2, is because not only, like I was talking about in part 1 about Starlight protecting her YouTube channel from rude comments, this is part 2, is because it's not only about like all the work that you put in on a project or something and, you know, protecting it. It's also about, you know, people. You know, this is about people too, is, you know, like if you're a husband and a wife and you have a family, maybe you got some kids, you know, grandpa, grandma, you know, sisters, brothers, is, you know, you kind of want to treat them like plants, especially if you're a mom and dad and you have little children, and you know, it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to raise up kids, and, you know, money. Yes, it takes a lot of money, you know, and depending on how you became a mom or a dad, you know, I'm not here to talk about that, but everybody comes from different backgrounds as far as, was it planned or was it not planned? But does that matter right now? No, because you already have them, right? You already have them. They're your family. And just like I was mentioning about how to protect, you know, your garden, and, you know, protecting the vegetables and fruit or whatever you're growing in your garden from weeds. And when I say like weeds, that could be, you know, things of the world. And that's what you need to do is, if you have a garden, hey, you know, I did put things on how to protect your garden from different things. And on this video, it's about how, you know, like other things that you need to protect, you know, because being a mom or a dad or both, you know, being a parent, sometimes there's single moms that are, you know, they're a mom and a dad, you know, they don't have the daddy around, and same goes with men, that they might be the only parent, you know, for different reasons, you know, so you might be playing both parts, both roles as far as bringing up your children. Look at this, isn't this cool? So now I want to say, you know, about, now you got like children, and you put a lot of time in your kids, raising them up in a way that you want to bring them up. And so there are like weeds out in the world, people, you know, that different things that are going to pull your kids away from what you're teaching them. So you do have to protect your kids, and there's so many different ways of protecting them. And what the first thing is, what are your kids learning? You know, what kind of education are they getting in life? And that is really important. Some of you, you know, we have all been programmed and lied to in society, and thinking that, you know, when we have kids, it's the thing to do is to, depending on your background, you know, I was brought up going to public school, and I couldn't stand it. I don't like using the word hate, and I just did, but really that is pretty much rounds it up right there. I did not like going to school. It was a nightmare. And but, you know, some of you might have been brought up like in like at a Catholic church and went to school that way. So it's really important to protect your kids from the very start of what kind of information are they learning. Do you even know what kind of information they are learning in the public school? Do you pay attention? You know, because I know you're working hard, and this is what happens to many families. They work so hard, and the school keeps you really busy by getting them not only involved into school, you know, from the time that they start until they get out of school. Well, guess what? Now, you know what? Now they got to go to soccer, football, basketball after school. So you're not really spending a whole lot of time. The children spend more time at the school than they do with their families, because the families do have to work, right? But, you know, you got to protect your kids. Those are like beautiful plants, you know, and later on, when you do, hang on, Starlight's like, I don't have the greatest traction on these shoes, and that was a very dangerous spot there. I got a couple dangerous spots here to cross through, so I don't really have any tractions on these sneakers, so I just got to get through these because one slip and you're down there somewhere. So Starlight, there we go. So your kids, you want to kind of look at them like beautiful plants, and you're putting all the time and effort into raising them, the wisdom and knowledge that you have that you're pouring into them. And so you want to be mindful in the beginning is to protect them, make sure they're learning the right kind of stuff, make sure they're not being programmed like we have been and lied to. And they're, it's really tough to protect them from those things. So those are some ways to protect your children, is to make sure that they're not learning false information in the school system, no matter where they go to get their education. And also is what kind of people do you have in your children's lives? And this could be anybody, it could be friends from school, it could be relatives, that come to the house. It could be the neighbor kids. It could be church kids. It could be, strangers. So you got to protect your kids from the kind of people that they interact with. And it is so vitally important because you could put all that time and effort into your children, doing everything as good as you can. Nobody's a perfect parent, absolutely not. But you're doing the best that you can. Hang on, Starlight's actually see some benches over here. And so all that work and effort that you're doing with your kids is that you need to make sure you're protecting them from the kind of people that they spend time with. Do you even know who their friends are? Do you even know, it doesn't even matter if they go to church or not. Just because kids go to a building that they call a church doesn't mean the kids at the church are a good influence in your kids' lives. Some of the kids from Christian families that are really strict with their kids, they could be really, 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 really super rebellious, and they could be, really upset because they're forced to do things that they don't want to do, and they might see through the bullshit at church, and they could be really rebellious, and they could really have attitudes. So just because a kid goes to church with a so-called Christian family, it doesn't mean that that person, whether it's a boy or girl, is a good influence in your life for your kids' lives. So you really need to take time to get to know the kind of kids that your kids or people that are spending time with your children. And when I say that, I mean even your relatives. Oh yeah, you might have relatives and you think, oh, well, that's their uncle. They got to spend time with their uncle. But is uncle, I'm just going to pick a name here. Starlight's shoe is just falling apart here. But is Uncle, we'll just say Uncle Ben, Rice, is Uncle Ben a good influence for your children? Who is Uncle Ben? Well, Uncle Ben, he's not married. And sorry about that, Starlight's just trying to get situated at this picnic table that has seen better days here. So, Uncle Ben, he has never settled down, and you love him. He's your brother, and that's your kids' uncle. But Uncle Ben actually has some really bad habits, and like smoking and partying a lot. He likes to party, has never settled down, like I said. And there's different things about Ben that could be a very bad influence on your kids. And not saying that you can't have Uncle Ben at the house, but what you can do is control how much time, and tell Ben, hey, if you're going to come to the house, please, you can put the rules up at your house and say, we really appreciate that, if you're going to come to our house, no smoking. We don't smoke in our house, and we don't want that in our house. It's your house, it's your castle. So you could put the rules up at your house of what you can or will not put up with in your home. Don't let people come in your home and act a certain way when it's your house and you're trying to bring up your kids in a good way. Is that you have to protect your children from bad influences of, how would your kids think, is Uncle Ben a a great uncle? Yeah, they love Uncle Ben. He's so funny. He makes a lot of funny jokes. He makes the kids laugh. Hey, that's great. But what do they know about Uncle Ben? Do they know a lot about Uncle Ben? And they he might be with one girl and then, brings her to the house. Next time, Uncle Ben's got another girlfriend. And it's like, so it's really important. I'm just picking on a guy right now as Uncle Ben, but don't worry, we'll pick on a girl too on this. So you got to really be mindful of your relatives that come to the house. What kind of influence I'll tell you what, you think they don't have no influence on your kids? I'll tell you what, I didn't learn smoking because my parents smoked. No, it wasn't because my mom and dad smoked. They didn't smoke. They drinked. Yeah, they drinked, but they didn't smoke cigarettes. They didn't do drugs. It was the people that came to the house. That's how Starlight started smoking. It wasn't because of my mom or my dad that were smoking. Sorry, Starlight's gonna get her tripod out here. Oopsie. So it is so important to really check with the kind of people that you have as far as influences in the home, because those people, if you're not being careful, that could really confuse your kids as far as what they should or shouldn't do as far as children go. They could be really confused as far as, well, Uncle Ben, hang on, Starlight is like trying to multitask here. Well, like what kind of an example is Uncle Ben as far as, teaching the children is to, later on get married and settle down. What kind of example is he being to the children if every time he comes around he's got he's kissing this girl one time and next time they see Uncle Ben, he's got another girl, and it can bring a lot of confusion to the kids. They might think that is a normal way of living their life. Sorry, Starlight's like, ooh. So that is why it is so important to check with the kind of people, the kind of influences, and these are things that you might have never thought about. And you know what? If you got people that are coming to the house, it's really wise to protect your kids. Now, say if you're going to have a party at your house, and it's wise if you could really get a babysitter and have your kids spend a night at a safe relative's house or a friend's house or whoever that you trust. And then that is when you can have Uncle Ben and have your fun time with Uncle Ben. Let Uncle Ben be himself. But really, there should be rules in the house as far as how Uncle Ben is representing himself in front of the children, because that can really trip up your kids and their future as far as really how how you want them to turn out later on. And it's not just the people that are around the family, like relatives. It's also the mom and dad. What kind of an example are you with your kids? Are you the right kind of example to your children on what you want them to follow? Because a lot of parents have this statement, even churches, is do as I say, not as I do. Hey, I don't want you smoking cigarettes. Well, that's great, but what are they seeing you doing? Are they watching you? Do they know that you smoke cigarettes? Now, I have to say, I have relatives that I give them a lot of credit. They struggled with smoking cigarettes, and they have a son. They never smoked in front of their son. never smoked cigarettes in front, or if they smoked marijuana, they never did it in front of their son. They shouldn't see that, you know, because they're going to follow your example as far as, hey, well, mom and dad did it. And you could say whatever you want to your kids and say that's not good for you, but you're being the example of saying, well, hey, you're not supposed to do this, but I can do this. But Ma, you said that it's not good for your health. I know. So you got to think of what are you teaching your kids and how can you protect them. And it goes with even their friends, you know. So their friends, what kind of friends do they have? Do you know what kind of friends? So the friends, the family, the same thing. Spend some time to get to know the kids, because this is how you protect your kids, is by, you know, being a great mom and dad and saying, you know what, ever since you've been hanging out with this, we're going to pick on girls now. I'll say Sally, because I do know a girl named Sally, is, so you got a daughter named Sally, and ever since she's been hanging out with Tiffany, her attitude has been changing. You know, watch for these things with your kids. Are they changing? Are they one way? They were really good, they were sweet, and then they come home and then they're bam. And you've been letting them go to Tiffany's house. And now they're not acting like your child anymore. They're like a mix. They're partly, sometimes they act like your child, and, you know, sometimes now they're starting to change their clothing around and doing their hair different, and they're talking to you in a different tone now. And, you know, now they're wanting to wear makeup. Now they're actually being more bossy. These are signs that you got to pay attention to, and it's hard. You know, homeschooling would be the best for you. If you can make it happen, make it happen. You know, and there's ways that people can make it happen, but you got to be, you know, like, really, what is, you know, it's what is important for your kids is what you got to think about. And, you know, just because you were brought up and you went to public school, that's been a program to program you thinking that's the way it's got to be. There's a lot of families that said no more, even when after COVID. Wow, I met a lot of people after COVID. Wow, a lot of people. COVID wasn't a bad thing to me. It woke me up. It put me on the right path. I am so extremely happy with the person that God has put in my life. I'm so extremely happy with everything. Even I could have a really upside down day, but I'm extremely happy because I know I'm where I belong. So when COVID came, a lot of families I talked to on my journey here, that they said a lot of the families, it's like I said, it's amazing with COVID, because families actually had their kids couldn't go to school because of COVID. So they got sent home. So then there was a lot of people that couldn't go to work. Why? They didn't have a babysitter. They didn't have anybody. They didn't know anybody. So they had to stay home. So everything changed. But you know what? That could have really shook people up so much where they never sent them back to school, because it was something that was bothering them the whole time. They just needed a little push to break that cycle of thinking that's what they had to do, that's what they were used to do, and that's what they were programmed to believe to do, that's what their family thought, you know, is to do. But now they're not doing that. They're realizing all the material stuff that they really thought was so important is not as important as after COVID, when they realize that their kids are more important than worrying about, you know, like getting that beautiful car, you know, and how much, you know, Starlight had a lease car. How much money is that lease car? You know, so there's ways that you could save money by not going out and, you know, this is what happens. I know people throughout their life, they get a lot of money and then they just, you know, they buy whatever they want. So when they see something, they don't discipline themselves. I gotta have that. I gotta have that. I gotta have that. I gotta have that. And then they get a paycheck. You know, they pay their bills. They're, you know, and then I gotta have that, and they gotta have that, and these are things that it might not even be clothing, or it could be clothing where they're going for the name brand stuff. They're just thinking about, hey, I want to look good to impress other people, and so they get used to spending so much money that you really don't want to get too used to doing that, being so materialistic, because you're going to have a habit, just like drinking or smoking, or we got so many different habits, or that could be an addiction later on. Like, I mentioned in the one video, first it's one glass of wine, then it's two, a night, and that's what happened to Starlight. So just like getting used to spending a lot of money, as you get used to it, it ends up being like a habit. And it's like, and a lot of times it's that you're not happy with something going on inside of you, but that's not how you're not really seeing it that way. You're looking at, hey, when I buy something that makes me feel good temporarily, it's only going to make you feel good for a little while. Then you got to, now that feeling of buying those things went away. Now you got to go buy something more money, that spends more of your money, where you got to be mindful that you could cut back on stuff, and you got to wean yourself back and realize, where is all the money going? So you really write everything down. Write a list of all the things that you got, that where the money is. Sorry, I thought that was a worm, because I do have a beautiful little caterpillar here. And so you really do. You got to be mindful of, where is all the money going? Do you have to have a man and a wife going to work? Does the man make enough money? Does the wife make enough money? Do you both have to go out to work? Well, after COVID, a lot of families realized, what? I was tired of going there to work, hearing all this drama and gossiping and backstabbing, and, where, they get pulled back and realize, what? They ended up some people might have ended up liking being home and finding out more about their kids, really spending more quality time with their kids, realizing, what, this is where I belong here now. It's because I realized, that rat race out there was pulling me around and controlling me. I wasn't even happy at my workplace, and it could be the husband or the wife. So if you got somebody there with you, really think twice. You might even have relatives that are safe, that, could help you out and help you homeschool your kids. It wouldn't be much. I mean, I say it's not much, because really, in the end, it would be worth it, because there's a lot of bad apples at the school system, or even in church programs that they have for people that bring their kids to get educated. So you really have to protect your children. Now, also, when I'm talking about protecting, how to protect your garden, as far as, people, is if you're in a family, you got a family, a husband, a wife, and kids, well, guess what? Starlight always, the man is supposed to be like the protector. And so the father, the husband, right? He's got to make sure that everybody in the house is protected. That means he has got to be in his place as far as the dad goes. Not that he's going to be perfect, but his job is to make sure his mom being protected, his mom going in safe environments, his mom, there's not to over control, but his job is to protect. Is he making sure that he's being a good dad, to make sure that the kids are going in safe environments? Because do you want to spend all that time, effort, and work that it takes to put in your children, you got to protect it. Just like there's a lot of people, what they do is they have a house, and then they put a fence around it, because they want to, just like a castle. You wouldn't want to have a castle without having a, protecting, just like in olden days and all that. They had a fence all the way around so the enemy couldn't come in. So that is how you got to be with your family. Is if you're living in the city, you're going to want to move out, because you're not protecting your family in a good way, in that environment. A lot of times the city is not the place that you want to be, not to be so close to so many other people on that street. And a lot of times, depending on where you live, if you don't cleanse that house, know how to cleanse that house, you're gonna be attracted to go in homes that had a lot of negative energy in the house, and it could affect your family, whether you believe this or not. Just like in a city area, living too close to other people, Starlight couldn't handle it. I've been there. I had to call the cops. You know, somebody locked me out of my own apartment. You know, a kid, a teenager, you know, locked me out of my own apartment. You know, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. You know, you locked me out of my own apartment, and now she's in my apartment. You know, and she caused a lot of problems with my kids. She was a very bad example, you know, for my kids to be around. And so I ended up moving. I'm like, you know, this girl is you know, I loved her, I prayed for her, but she had some stuff that she was going through, you know. So anyway, I love you. So make sure you are protecting your beautiful plants. You know, you got roses in your house, you know, your kids, those, you know, take good care of them. You know, sometimes people take better care of their pets than they do with their kids, and it shouldn't be, right? I hope you're not doing that. So anyway, I love you so much. This is Starlight. You could give this video a thumbs up. You could subscribe to my YouTube channel. Plus, you could share my videos with your family, your friends, cat, dog. Plus, don't forget, you can leave me a message down below. Beep, beep, beep. And also, you could follow me on Instagram at 1995 Starlight, or on Facebook, and that is Kathy with a K, Dingman Starlight. And right before I end this, I just want to let you know is there's times if Starlight is late on sending a video out, it could be a Wi-Fi issue or a phone issue. So I apologize if my videos go out late. It just might be that Starlight's Wi-Fi is not working at the time. But anyway, I love you. This is Starlight. Namaste. This is Starlight. Love, light, and peace.